welcome everyone. Today I have Miss Kendra Barnes. I'm really excited to have her because we don't really talk about real estate investing as a side hustle. And if you are new to my show, this is a segment on my the Income Statement TV where I call it the Side Hustle Saturdays, where I feature different stories, different people's journeys on their side hustles, whether they became financially free, paid off their debts, or just growing a side business to grow wealth in their life, but they love their day jobs. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Kendra. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and your background and how you got to do real estate investing in the first place?
Yeah, so my name is Kendra, and I have been real estate investing for about 6 years now. And I came into it really randomly. My husband and I played this game called Cash Flow one day. It's basically like Monopoly, but it kind of mimics life a little bit
I
better.
love that game.
You love it? Okay, good. Tell me all
Yes.
about it.
I'm actually in a group where we meet once a month to play the game.
Shut up.
Yes.
Wait, where do you live? I'm going to have to come. I love that game. So you know how it works, but basically it inspired us to invest because we realized in order to live your dream, you need to make more passive income. Like your regular salary income from your 9 to 5 is not going to cut it for long-term wealth. Long story short, we got into real estate investing after playing that game and we were like addicted. And so we are now financially free because of our real estate investments. And so, yeah, I just love teaching people about how to get started.
I love it. We've gotten the itch. I've had the itch a few years back, but I was sitting here trying to finish school and pay off my student loan debt and kind of keep that low. So I had different financial goals back then. But now that we're in a good place, I'm building my own business. We're really looking to get into real estate investing. And like I said, we're in that group. And what I loved about the game was it definitely changed my mind about leveraging my finances. Because in my mind, it's like, get debt free first, and then you can start investing. But playing one of the characters, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have paid off my mortgage. I should have leveraged and bought real estate investing, like properties, and then I could have paid off my mortgage that way and still built wealth. So it was really interesting. I definitely recommend anyone playing the game. So what kind of things did you learn during the game and actually being in the game?
I love that you bring that up, like about being debt free, because debt free is amazing, but it doesn't always equal wealth. And I think people like sensationalize debt free, but it's like in my mind, there is like good debt for my rental properties. If I have a mortgage, which is debt, my tenants are paying that debt. Like, so it's not really a bill to me. And I feel like it's so good to leverage, right? And only put a small amount of money down to make more money. So that's one thing I learned. But a bigger thing that I really learned was like, it's those professions that you don't really think could be wealthy who really win the game, like the plumbers and the mechanics and things like that, because they didn't have student loans. And those doctors and lawyers, they end up losing because they can't like balance the two. And there's this narrative that I think is like the American dream of having those high paying professions. Those high paying professions come with high debt, student loan debt. And so that's like kind of my takeaway.
I love that too. So if anyone in the audience, you haven't played it, you need to play it. Will definitely open your eyes. I played once as a janitor and once as a doctor. Yeah. And he made 6 figures, or I guess she, because I'm the doctor. But it was so tough to get out of my debt because I had my mortgage. I had hundreds of $1,000s in student loan debts. Yeah. And then other like credit card, all those other debts. So it was really hard to get out of the rat race that way. Yeah. So it's great that people can start thinking that, oh, just because I make 6 figures or someone makes 6 figures doesn't mean they're rich. It doesn't mean that they are set up for success.
Exactly.
So how did you get started into real estate? So if somebody wanted to get started right now, what could be some ideas or steps?
Yeah, so our first property purchase, well, we bought a house first, like a primary residence. We lived in a house, but our first rental property was a duplex, which is a 2-unit building. And we learned a lot, like what I wish I would have known then, and something that you can take away from this if you're just getting into real estate investing is this concept called house hacking. Have you heard of house hacking?
I have. But why don't you tell the audience?
Yeah, if you've never heard of it, it's basically when you buy a multi-unit building and you live in one unit and you rent out the other units. And the really cool thing about house hacking is you're essentially living there for free, because if you play it correctly, your tenants are paying your mortgage. So say in this instance, we bought a duplex. The mortgage was like $1,025 a month. there was a tenant in it already paying $1,100. So if we would have lived in the other unit, we're basically living there for free and making a few dollars a month, right? And so it's this amazing concept no one told us about. So we did not house hack. We actually didn't live there. Um, so we ended up having to put like $57,000 down for the down payment because we didn't live there. And that's one of the biggest barriers to buying rental properties is that extremely high down payment when you're getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
If we would have house hacked and just lived there for a year, we would have only had to put $8,000 down. And so it's like this huge disparity when you think about the numbers, if you're just willing to make like that short-term sacrifice, but we just didn't know any better at the time.
Yeah, and I can see that. And so I think house hacking has just gotten, not that people haven't been doing it for a while, but I've just been hearing about it a lot more
Yeah.
now. And I think it's
Yeah.
a great opportunity for people to kind of jump in. And I
Mhm.
know for us, just like for fun looking, manifesting, looking at duplexes and multiplexes and they're really not much more than a single family home. So
Nope.
if you can pull off that mortgage for a duplex, house hacking is actually a really great idea to jump in. I love that you brought it up.
Yeah.
So, throughout your journey, how long have you guys been doing real estate investing, and how long did it take you to kind of get financially free?
We've been investing in real estate for 6 years, but it wasn't until like 3 years ago that we really started actively pursuing financial freedom, like setting our freedom number and then working towards it. Even though we reached it really soon, really quickly, my husband I'm so glad he's more patient than I am because I'm like, I'm ready to quit. Like, I don't want to, I really hated my job so much. I was an agricultural economist for the Department of Agriculture. Super random career, I know, but he was like, okay, even though we've reached our number, let's make sure it's sustainable and let's go through the ups and downs of real estate because you have vacancies, you
Mm-hmm.
have tenants that you have to put out, you have these different things. It's not like all bad, but there are, ups and downs. You have things you have to fix. And so he's like, let's make sure this is sustainable and let's try it out for a few years. And just make sure the numbers work while we still have our jobs. So it took us about 3 years until we were comfortable to leave. And so we both, he left his job last November and I left last February.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, it's been a year.
That's awesome. I just left my job last March. And you're
Right.
right. Like, I think everyone, they see the glamorousness of
Mm-hmm.
being an entrepreneur, or, you see people doing real estate investing or side
Mm-hmm.
hustles and growing their business. They're not realizing that it took years to get to that point, these overnight successes, and being patient's most important. And actually, I love that your husband's like, yeah, it's working, but let's make sure it's sustainable and
I know.
continue. I know, and that must have been really hard though.
Oh, you have no idea. But I'm so glad he did though, because like it's really hard, especially if you're going the mortgage route, to get approved for a mortgage without that W-2 income. And so, I mean, you can still do it, but it's much harder. And so it's really good to like use our 9 to 5 to, our advantage as much as possible. So you definitely can invest in real estate with the 9 to 5. And even if you're in a place that you're not really ready to buy that first rental property, there are still ways that you can get into real estate investing as a side hustle. That's the beauty of real estate, really. There's so many ways to get into it. And I would love to share some of those ways too.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if you own a home right now, there are so many ways you can make money off of your primary residence, especially for the people who say you own a home and you have like a walkout basement, or you have a basement that you're not using, or say you have a guest house in the back, or maybe you just have like a really beautiful backyard that's like very picturesque. There are ways you can make rental income off of your primary residence. And so, one of the ways is to rent out your walkout basement, right, on Airbnb. You can rent it to travel nurses, which are nurses that travel every 3 months. They rotate to different hospitals around the US. They are great tenants. You can also rent out your space by the hour for photo shoots, film shoots, and meetings. There are people who are literally renting out their kitchen on the weekends for a couple of hours to YouTubers and making like $100 an hour. And so,
What?
yes,
I need to be doing this.
if you have a nice looking kitchen or a living room or outdoor space or something, if you think about the way social media is now, content
Yeah.
creators are always looking for new spaces to shoot, right? And so people, even if you have, say you lease an office space, I know this one yoga instructor, she leases a yoga studio, but her classes are only on the weekends. during the week, she rents it out as a co-working space. And so
Hmm.
this is, there's so many ways to like I said, if you own a home, even if you have an apartment, if you talk to your landlord, about subletting or things like that, like you can still make money off of where you live. So photo shoots, film shoots, meetings. There's a website called Peer Space, PEER, like we're
Years,
peers,
yeah.
peer to peer, peer space. Com, of course, Airbnb and things like that. But so that's one way to make money off of your primary residence. Another way to make money in real estate investing, kind of as a side hustle, is to go on platforms like Fundrise, 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 where you're basically acting as a lender. If you have like a few $1,000s kind of just sitting and you want to make more return on that money, you can lend it to investors who are, maybe doing some big deals, and they can basically set, okay, we'll give you, I don't know, 10% return on your money in X amount of time. And that's much better than the like 1% or whatever it's making in the
Yeah.
savings account, which is like nothing, right? um Also, if you think about things like tax lien investing, which is a great way to get started. If you only have like $500 or $1,000, you can basically invest in tax liens. If you're not familiar with the process, definitely look it up. That's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and do it on the side until you're ready to kind of dive right in. And so those are just like three really quick ways to kind of get started.
So with those smaller, I wouldn't say smaller, but they're great like stepping stones into real estate. Would you recommend whatever profits you make from that, just saving that as adding to that investment portfolio to invest in that actual property?
Definitely, because in my mind, before you buy your first home or rental property, you need to make sure you have at least like 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved, or the potential expenses for that property, because you always want to make sure you're prepared for anything that could come up. So if savings is tough for you, you definitely want to look into just kind of putting that to the side so you can stack up that money. And it also makes you a better candidate if you have that money stacked up. It makes you a better candidate for a loan, for a mortgage, if you're going to go the mortgage route, because they want to look at your savings, your debt to income ratio and all those things.
Mhm.
But you just want to look like the best candidate you can, because it's all about risk to those banks. They're looking at
Yeah,
how risky it is to lend you that money. So
I agree. And side tip, if you're not good at savings, open up an account that's not linked to your regular normal accounts, like an
yeah,
online account that you don't see all the time, because that used to be my issue and I've gotten a lot better now because of it. So a little side tip, if you're not great at savings, especially if you kind of see it physically all the time.
yes.
So one last question, because real estate investing can be really scary for a lot of people. And one of my favorite books, and I don't know if you've actually read it, is The Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
No, I've never read it.
Oh, you should read it. I don't think you really need to, but it's a great book,
I love
especially for anybody who
reading.
wants
I'm going to
to
look
learn.
it
And
up.
kind of that book ignited me wanting to get into real estate investing. What I love about it is there's different ways to kind of leverage your properties. So there's some people who are more safe. They kind of poured all the rent money that they got into the actual mortgage. Some people waited for a certain period of time and pulled a home equity loan to buy the
Mhm.
next property. There's different ways, just like you said, and when it comes to it. But I want to know, with you actually being experienced, being a landlord, and
Mhm.
understanding that there's some costs and there's some vacancies, do you recommend actually putting the whole amount of the rent towards paying off the mortgage, or saving that profit just in case if you need to do any fixes, or to save for the next property that you want to buy?
So if I understand correctly, you're basically saying like taking any profits and like paying down the mortgage faster.
That, or would it be better to save that in the savings in account, just in case if you need to fix something crazy and you don't have extra money on the side, or
Mhm.
you want to save that to buy the next property? What do
So for
you?
For us, we take our profits and we save it and reinvest it. We never pay our mortgage off faster because we just feel like the leverage is so key. And we just don't mind letting our tenants pay the mortgage. Like, to us,
Mhm.
it's like they're paying it, it's fine. And so we just don't feel like we have any incentive to pay that mortgage off. So our personal home, yes, by all means, like, because technically, like, day to day, it's not making us any money. Though I
Yeah.
do believe that your primary residence can have a return on investment in the future, right? But paying off the mortgage of a rental property faster, in my mind, is like a waste. Like you could use that money and buy another rental property, and that's what we've done. Yeah.
I always wondered about that. Anybody who did real estate investing, because there's always seems to be two mindset camps. It's like,
Yep.
oh, pay off that mortgage faster, and
Yep.
then you can get the next property. And there's others like, no, leverage it. Like, just make sure you
Yeah.
have money in the bank to take care of any of those incidences and be ready to buy that next property as soon as possible.
It's just a numbers game, though. It depends on like whatever interest rate you have for the mortgage on that property, and then whatever money you have, how much can you make on that money, and what does it look like? And so for us, especially our rental properties are in DC and Maryland, the numbers are just too good. Like it wouldn't make any sense for us to use it on anything else other than buying more property.
Makes sense. So I like to ask all my interviewees, you already kind of gave the hint or a tip of if you first get started with house hacking, but I would like you to share what was the biggest lesson you learned through this whole journey of real estate investing?
Ooh, the biggest lesson well, first I want everyone to know that like I think there's this preconceived notion that you have to be wealthy first before investing in real estate, and that's like couldn't be farther from the truth. Like you become wealthy by investing, and you really can get started right now with what you have. And I think everyone needs to know that. But my biggest lesson learned was that you really, if you're building wealth from the ground up, you have to do what other people are not willing to do. And even though I had played the game cash flow and I got inspired to invest in real estate, I still wasn't of that wealth building mindset until like a year later, because I had to get uncomfortable. You have to make sacrifices. Like we ended up like downsizing to a 1-car household. We sold our nice cars, downsized to like a really crappy car, but it all worked out, and we wouldn't be financially free now if it wasn't for that. Right. And so if you are trying to get where most people can't, you have to do what most people are not willing to do. And that's just so key when it comes to building wealth, especially if you're building from the ground up like me, because we didn't like come from a family of money. Like we really scrapped this together, and it's just so important.
I love that you share that, because I know that mentality can stop a lot of people from trying. And even just like starting a business is like, well, I can't do it because I don't have enough money, or I don't know how to get clients. And for like real estate, it's like, well, I don't have a ton of money to get started, but there's options out there. And you kind of listed a lot of them. And I like that you shared, even though you played the game, it took a little bit to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that's what's the biggest thing for everybody, is getting out of your comfort zone and being able to do something that other people aren't normally able to do or willing to do.
Yeah, you can do it too. You got this.
Well, this is amazing. If anybody wants to learn more about real estate investing, how can they connect with you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram. It's at The Key Resource. And once you find me there, you'll see all the information you need right in the link in my bio, and DM me and let me know you heard me on this interview. I would love to chat with you guys. And Tina, thank you so much for having me on here. If you're looking for any more side hustle tips and things like that, I do have a couple posts on my Instagram feed that you can read. And yeah, I'm just super excited to chat with you guys.
Awesome. I will definitely make sure to share that on my social media as well. And I will put all the links in the show notes for you all, so you can make sure to share or follow Kendra and learn as much as you can, because I know I will be definitely following a little bit closer, because we're getting closer and closer to actually start to do real estate investing ourselves.
Yay!
Well, thank you everyone for joining to this week's episode of Side Hustle Saturdays. Again, this segment comes out every other Saturday. Please leave in the comments any aha moments or any questions you have. We will make sure Kendra can see them, and so she can answer them, or I can answer them myself. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other episodes. You guys have a great night.